Yes, back on with Denzel Sports Takes, back again with another video. If you're new to the channel, like and subscribe. Hey man, so I know we all watched. We are here for the NFL draft. Round one just occurred this past night. Oh man, it was definitely an exciting one so far. Um, Everybody mock drafts, what we expected was totally different. Let's go ahead and dive in, man. Immediately, the number one pick was automatically Fernando Mendoza. I think everybody had that going for the Raiders. The connection that he had with Tom Brady, just everything that was aligned, you knew that it was going to happen. They even talked about a breakdown that throughout his senior year, he actually had been working with Greasy, and Greasy had connections with Tom Brady, of course, being a backup quarterback for him as well. And he already pretty much put it in motion that he was going to be the number one pick. I know there's a lot of questions whether or not he can take the mantle, especially being that high as a quarterback. We've seen it plenty of times with quarterbacks, a la Andrew Luck, a guy like Peyton Manning, guys that are taking that high. They're immediately put in that position to where you're like, okay, can they run the show and can be able to hold his own? Because when you're going this high, you already know that, the team is not going to be that great. So you want to make sure that you got pieces around them and building them. So it's interesting to see if they're going to align and do that and add more to the team for him. It's definitely going to be assistant to be able to do that because he's a young guy and you're going to try to put a lot of weight on his shoulders. Me personally, I think he's going to still be a good quarterback. Do I think he's going to be like that elite quarterback? I don't know. That's in question. Only time will tell. He could be kind of like a Kirk Cousins kind of type of quarterback or like an Alex Smith. But like we have to see though. But I think by far he was the best quarterback to take out of the draft because this is really a weak quarterback draft this year. And we're gonna touch back on the quarterback in the draft that shocked everybody. Number two threw me off, and to me, I think this is the point where the draft started to change because I feel like most people did not have David Bailey going to the Jets at this pick. I believe most people had Avery Reese going at this pick right here. And I think it would have been a situation where Avery Reese would have fit right with the Jets. Although it's a question if he was going to play like outside linebacker or is he going to play like edge rusher. So it's kind of that in between to try to figure out whether or not he was going to do that. For me, I think that he was going to be able to fit there, but David Bailey, Jets went with David Bailey. I think they probably wanted a full-time edge rusher to fit at that spot. To me, I thought his reaction, he was excited afterwards, but I do think he probably wanted to go to Arizona because everybody had him mocked on, a lot of people had him mocked on Arizona. It was between him and a couple other folks, maybe or even offensive line that people thought of as well. This next pick, because of this is what switched the Tennessee pick. Jeremiah Love, running back of Notre Dame, goes to Arizona Cardinals at pick number 3. Me being a UC Trojan fan, I seen full thought of how good Jeremiah Love is. Man, he's one of those transcending running backs, and to me, he's a guy that can do a lot of things. I don't think he gets credit as far as his ability to make people miss after the first tackle. He's a hard guy to stop, really good down the field as far as running the football. I think some things that he probably is going to tighten up as far as his blocking, although he's not a terrible blocking running back, but it's just something that he can continue to improve. In my humble opinion, honestly, I think there's still some things that the Cardinals need to tighten up offensive line wise. There's a lot of questions about quarterback because Jacoby Brissett is going to be like their bridge guy because I think Arizona is really moving forward to drafting a quarterback next year in next year's draft, especially after the situation with Kyler Murray going to the Vikings, releasing him and he's signing with the Vikings. They've clearly moved in a direction where they're moving on a new regime and trying to move in a different direction now and trying to create their own identity and figure out what that is moving forward. So that was interesting. This pick shook the draft up too. Carnell Tate going number 4 to the Tennessee Titans. They shored up a position that they needed to help, Cam Ward as a pass catcher that they needed that was dynamic. My opinion, I think Carnell Tate is a good receiver out of Ohio State. I repeat, I believe he's a good receiver. I just don't believe that he is the number one guy to come off the board. I tried to throw my own bias away. I felt like Makai Lemon was the better, pure route receiver than him as a true number one receiver. I believe Carnell Tate can be a solid number two. What I can compare him to as his comp, who is a fellow alumni of Ohio State, is the receiver out of Washington, Terry McLaurin. I think he can be that type of guy if he does develop into a true number one. I just don't know if he is a true number one receiver for them. I think he can be a solid two. But they're drafting him here to be a number one guy, to be the solid guy for Cam Ward, to be his number one target. So we're going to see how that develops coming into the season. And then at the 5th pick, the Giants have 2 picks in the first round because with the trade with Dexter Lawrence, him trading Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals, and Cincinnati Bengals giving up this pick for that 10th pick rather. So they went with Avery Reese, who I thought was going to go earlier to the Jets. With Harbaugh, obviously he wants to build upon defense and get those guys that can solidify the defense. And I think this kind of shows that they're going to get rid of Thibodeau. I think they'll end up trading him at some point. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round they might trade him, or maybe once the draft is over they might try to find some compensation and try to trade him then. That actually was a good fit to me, honestly. I think Avery Reese going there was solid. This is what's interesting to me. I did not understand this at all. With the Chiefs got the 6th pick and they traded it from the Browns. They had got a selective picks from them initially to get that. I thought that Mesidor Delane was going to be there for the Chiefs regardless. I don't think any other team was going to try to draft him at that position. But they went ahead and traded up for him at the 6th spot and got him. The Chiefs got him. I didn't know who I thought for a second the Chiefs was going to probably get like Bain or especially to maneuver themselves to get to the 6th pick. But let's remember, the Chiefs are in win now right now. So they're not really going to worry about picks or anything like that. They're not going to really care about that. They just still, Patrick Mahomes off the injury he just had, off the ACL and the MCL tear. He's going to be back no later than week 4. They had Justin Fields as the backup quarterback, which is going to be intriguing to watch with him being underneath that Andy Reid system. So I think they're moving in the direction. They were like, you know what, we're going to have Pat soon. Listen, we in win now. We got to get the pieces that we need to fill the holes that we need, and we'd be right back on board like we never left. So that was a solidified thing, and I had him mocked to go there anyway. I just didn't think they were going to trade up for him to get to the 6th spot to get him. Next pick is Sonny Styles. I think this was a BPA for sure for Washington at the 7th pick. Obviously Sonny Styles was already getting a lot of recognition into the draft process, even leading up to the combine and after the combine, especially numbers that he put up in the combine. I think he's going to be a solid linebacker. This is a good fit. Imagine Sonny Styles with Frankie Louvu, because I think Sonny can also, he's a guy that is a Swiss Army knife on defense. You could put him in a lot of spots. You can either have him hand in the dirt, playing the edge rusher position. You can have him playing, have him playing Sam if you wanted to. You can also have him in a rover situation or dropping back in coverage because he's that versatile. Looking at his measurables too, which is a crazy thing. The dude is 6'5", 244 playing linebacker. I repeat, he's 6'5", 244 playing linebacker. Typically, you don't hear that. Usually, guys that tall are usually playing receiver or edge rusher or even offensive line. And that's what makes him unique, especially as he came out of Ohio State. The next pick, which was very shocking, my team division rival, the Saints went with Jordan Tyson at receiver out of Arizona State with the 8th pick in the first round. I think this had everybody shocked too because at this position, I thought that maybe they would go Caleb Downs because I know they need some secondary help, especially after Tyrann Mathieu retired. They did shore up the defensive back room a little bit. I thought maybe in question, possibly. If not him, it probably been edge rusher. But I think this is a good pick for them, honestly. I ain't even gonna lie. I think this is a good pick. I know it's a lot of questions with his injury history, and if you go back to his tape, I think his best tape was really between mainly his 2024 season. But I know, there's a lot of questions right now. But when the dude is solid, he's solid, and he's healthy. He's really good off the release. Good yak. I think he has the ability to make plays. I would make a comparison that I thought the closest person that he reminds me of is a Devontae Adams. And I think he's going to be solid, even as a division rival. I'm hoping we shut him down. But at the end of the day, man, I think this dude is going to be a solid dude. I think they needed another receiver for sure. And Chris Olave is solid within himself, but I know he's battled with injuries, especially when it comes to concussions. But you needed a number 2 guy. I think that was a pivotal move, solid for them. It was very shocking to see him go that early because a lot of people have mocked like maybe the teens a little bit to go somewhere. But that was actually solid though for sure. Of course, the Browns sure up some offensive line situations with Spencer Fano out of Utah at the number 9 pick. I thought he was a solid offensive lineman coming into his draft as a tackle. He's one of the top 5 tackles, arguably top 3, right around that 2 position of top tackles. They definitely had to shore up this position because you got to protect the quarterback. And one of their main issues this year was protecting the quarterback when Shedeur was playing. I know there's some questions whether or not who's going to be starting quarterback. In my humble opinion, I think it's going to be Shedeur. And another time I'm going to touch on that topic, but I just don't see Deshaun Watson. He has to prove me wrong. But I believe Shedeur Sanders is going to be a quarterback for the Browns, and you have to shore up that protection for your quarterback. The next pick is Francis Mauigoa out of Miami. I thought this was a solid pick again, building things for the trenches. That's something that Harbaugh did for numerous years in Baltimore. He did again tonight, and I think this was a solid pick for them to add upon that offensive line. The years that the Giants was really good, the key things is like when they had Booth, they had a couple other players sneak. So when they had guys like those, like they had some offensive linemen that protected pretty well, and they gave them the ability to run the ball pretty well. And I think that's why a lot of people would question, like, okay, would Jeremiah Love, if he came here, would he go to the Giants? Like, to pair him up with Scatterbo. But of course, Jeremiah Love went to the Arizona Cardinals, and that changed the things based upon how they board fell. I thought it was a solid pick. This is when we start to see some offensive linemen start to come off the board, especially because it was team heavy, especially in his first round. The next pick is the Dallas Cowboys choose Caleb Downs. They showed the recording. And by the way, this was the 11th pick in the first round. They showed the recording of the war room of the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, yeah, they're clapping. You would have thought they would have got, and don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people are going to put this as the Steelers in the first round, which I think is a big pick for them because Caleb Downs, like I said, I thought Caleb Downs was going to go to the Saints possibly. This is a solid fit for them. I think he's going to do a lot of things that they needed at the safety position that they've been missing. I still think they need to shore up the cornerback position. But if you ask me, I think this is a solid pick for them. The way they were celebrating, you would thought they won the Super Bowl already. I mean, listen, how about no Cowboys all through there? But I think this is a solid pick. I think he's going to be a good fit. I just hope my boy know it's going to be some roller coaster rides with Dallas Cowboys. They already going to be like, we them boys, we're ready to win. You already know how they do. But nah, Caleb Downs going to be a solid dude, man. This is going to be a perennial Pro Bowler type player. I think he's going to make differences on that defense for sure. I think safety was something they need to shore up as well. Like I said, I still think corner is a position that they need to add upon the draft. But I think this is a solid pick based upon how the board was falling. The next pick was the Miami Dolphins getting Caden Proctor out of Alabama, offensive tackle. I know there were some questions as far as his weight because he weighed 352 pounds at left tackle. He's a guy that they kind of utilize in different things. He kind of also was kind of like a swing tackle, but he also had the ability to just do some crazy things as far as, they would utilize him in certain packages where he would catch the football and run the football. There's actually a play of him running the football and they ain't scoring. So I think this was big for the Dolphins to protect Malik Willis. You know, you're moving in the direction. I think anytime you get a new quarterback or just a quarterback period, and you're rebuilding things, especially moving off of Tua, you gotta get the infrastructure as far as the offensive line. You gotta get them to some targets, and so they did that with this pick. I do question: are they gonna have him to cut some weight down? Because the dude 6'6", but 350 pounds is a lot of weight to carry. I do think they're probably going to have him cut down maybe like 25 to 30 pounds of that. Maybe have him around 335, 345-ish or something like that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could see him probably at his height, 6'6". I could see him at probably like a 330, maybe around 335. They may try to push to have him cut down. But I think he's going to be a solid offensive tackle, man. I would think that was a good fit. This is the shocker, ladies and gentlemen. This is the shocker of the draft. Here, I thought the Rams were going to go Mekhi Lemon at the 13th pick. The Rams. A lot of people had him mocked. The LA connection. Davante Adams is most likely on his last year with the Rams. There's questions at that number 2 position, at that receiver position. We know Puka's dealing with a lot as far as some off the field situations. I know he's taking therapy, but I believe, based on reports, he will be back in time for camp, or at least into the preseason, going to the regular season. So he's going to be they locked down number 1. The number 2 position, I think, is still Davante, but I think they needed a predecessor at receiver. But remember, I said predecessor. They needed another predecessor at the quarterback position. Matthew Stafford just put up MVP numbers, won the MVP, took them into a deep part of the playoffs. Probably by far one of his best seasons of all of his career. I mean, it's up there for him. Super Bowl champion. You know, is going to be a bona fide Hall of Famer someday. But you needed a guy to be the next guy. And my only thing was I did not see him, or the Rams in particular, taking this pick in the first round. I thought the Rams were going to draft quarterback in the second round, not first. I thought they were going to receiver, then quarterback in the second round to get a guy behind Matthew Stafford. But as I develop and kind of see it, I think this was a good pick for them. And, you know, when you feel like you got your guy, go take him. You know, that's that type of situation I think they believe because, like I said, you don't want to be in a situation like the Steelers were in where years after years, Mike Tomlin did not want to move in position to have a predecessor after Ben Roethlisberger because they wanted to just, you know, please Ben Roethlisberger and move how they felt pleased and waited too long once his arm was thrown out. Same things happened with the Falcons, you know. So when you got your guy, you got to go get your guy. And so the Rams went ahead and got Ty Simpson out of Alabama quarterback. I think he's most likely he's going to sit, learn under Matthew Stafford with Sean McVay's system. You know, he played in the Alabama system that was similar to Sean McVay's system at Alabama. So this is a really good pickup for them. I think everybody, including everybody's reactions, even other podcasts that I was watching, live feeds, was shocked. I mean, it really shocked everybody. Them going right here for 13 with Ty Simpson. I think longevity, this was solid for them. Go ahead and start, making moves to the future before it becomes a situation where it hurts you. And they did solid by that. The next pick was a must for the Baltimore Ravens. They needed to show up at the guard position. Don't want to mispronounce his name, but Olave Long, out of Penn State guard, number 14 pick, the Baltimore Ravens got it. You need to protect your moneymaker. You need to protect your franchise guy and Lamar Action Jackson. I think this was solid by them. It was a big must. I know there were some questions whether or not we're going to go guard, edge rusher. They could have got Sadiq tied in there, to be another guy behind Mark Andrews, especially letting Isaiah Likely go in free agency. But this was needed. This was needed with the guy they had at guard, man. Oh my God, dude was just terrible. I mean, I ain't never seen it like that. It was as if you were trying to teach a guy first time playing football. Matter of fact, the guy played at University of Minnesota, which actually developed good offensive line from time to time. So I don't even know, but that was a big need. My other divisional rival, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, drafted Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. We know there was some situations in regards to things that was brought up in his past, and Matter of fact, teams already knew about this. This was nothing new. Then the biggest story before that was the short arms and his extension. In my opinion, the guy can play. Listen, he learned under a great Hall of Famer, underneath Jason Taylor, who was an excellent defensive end that played years with Miami Dolphins, and of course at the end of his career with the New York Jets. But he learned with one of the best edge rushers as a Hall of Famer. So don't you think he created ways and gave him toolage to learn ways to use his short arms and not in the way that where it's defective, but a way he can use it in ways that he can advance himself. And so I think you roll the tape, you look his ability throughout the time that he was in Miami. He was a difference maker. He was a key difference maker, man. Even in the national championship against Indiana, he still was a difference maker. He still made plays when he could. Like, I think that is important. And I hate the fact that the Bucs got him because it was my division rival, but they needed edge rusher. I can't remember the last edge rusher they had, man. It might have been Jason Pierre-Paul. I know they also had, I lost my train of thought on the other defensive end that they had, number 58. Let me know in the comments what the name of that defensive player was. Lost track, but, Barrett. He just retired about, I want to say 2 years ago. That was really the only edge rusher, but they never had a guy for like a long period of time. To me, their greatest edge rusher is Simeon Rice. Also interior is Warren Sapp, and then you also have your Jerry McCoys. But to me, they haven't had a pure edge rusher in quite some time. They've had a few fill-ins, even Ndamukong Suh on the year that they won the Super Bowl. But they haven't had a solid pass rusher in a while. I think this was key. This was definitely key for them. The next pick was Keon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. Most people see him as a freak athlete at the tight end position. They picked him at number 16, and I did not have the Jets getting him actually, but I think the Jets are trying to really put things in motion for next year. I'm gonna talk about this a little later too on the later pick that they add, but there's some questions around the Jets, and I'm gonna dive in a little bit deeper on the later pick that they had in the first round. But the dude is gonna be a good tight end for sure. Interested in how they try to utilize him in this situation because the quarterback situation is very in question. I mean, I think they still have. Actually, the quarterback is gonna be a former number 1 pick at that position, which. With Geno Smith, which is going to be crazy within itself. I'm surprised he even signed back with the Jets. And me personally, I thought it was time for Geno to put the cleats up. But yeah, I did not see that happening, honestly. But it's not a bad pick. I think it's a good pick for them to get a type of target that can be a tool that can really energize the team and move them forward if he's used right. Excuse me. Next player taken was Blake Miller out of Clemson, offensive tackle. With them losing Decker this offseason, I think it was an important position they needed to draft. Immediately, we start to see like the coaches and everybody was ecstatic on this pick because I think this fits the mold of what Detroit needs, and especially at the left tackle position, and protect Jared Goff. Like I said, it was needed. I think Detroit. And I hope to see later in the rounds is that they're starting to build the pieces that they lost. And I think the biggest thing they have to know that they have to build upon depth as well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I'm curious to see what happens. I'm going to predict that I think in the second round they get a corner. I think that's a position they need badly. On the other side, outside of Armstead, I think they need that in Armstead. I think they need that position badly. They need a lot of depth at that position. But I think this is a solid pickup, something they need. You can never go wrong with offensive tackle, especially a guy like this that was really excellent at Clemson and showed his upside, especially going into the draft. The next pick was Caleb Banks. This was another shocking pick because nobody expected him to be this high. I did not expect him to be the first really defensive tackle off the board, especially at 18. I know there were some questions as far as his injury history. I think he got cleared on it, and I think that's what made him move up the board. Like I said, I did not see him going here. The person I did see was Dylan Thymal, and the reason why is because with Harrison Smith, who was an amazing safety for them, number 22, Harrison Smith, out of Notre Dame. He's been an excellent career, man. In my opinion, I think he's a Hall of Famer. But they cut him, although I believe in the transition he was contemplating retirement. But I thought they were going to go safety here with them out of Oregon. They choose not to. They go defensive tackle. The next pick is my Carolina Panthers. We go with offensive tackle Monroe Freeling out of Georgia at the 19th pick of the NFL draft. You see it. Me personally, it was a lot of up and down to see what we're going to do with this pick. I had been talking for a while. I was like, I think we're going to go offensive tackle. But then the other side of me was like, okay, I can see safety. I could see linebacker. I wanted Blake Rodriguez right here. Excuse me, not Blake Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez right here. But I know some Panther fans. I've seen over Twitter, threads, everywhere. It's like half and half for some people. Some people want Makai Lemon. I personally don't think so. Even as a USC Trojan fan, you got to look at the depth pieces of what we already have at receiver. I just don't think he would have fit in what we already have. Yes, I thought safety here, but reason why I think they went tackle, and I think they always was thinking tackle here, if depending on how the board went, because you got to think about it. Okay, there's a few things to tie in. We got a situation with Ike Ekwonu. He had an injury in the Rams game. He had the surgery. He's going through rehab currently and getting back, but it's going to be a time with that type of injury that he had. So he may not even be ready. Now, yes, we did go ahead and get an offensive lineman in free agency out of Green Bay, a former Green Bay Packer player, and he's going to start. But the question is right now is that with Moton, who is probably going to be on his last year, and I don't see the Panthers bringing him back just based upon his age at this point. Monroe Freeling is a swing tackle who can play multiple positions at the offensive line, which is key because it gives you more depth at the offensive line spot. I believe at some point they're going to move him over to right tackle after Moton, possibly more than likely next year. But at the time being, he's still going to have the ability to play. I think, depending on if he doesn't play this season and gets much playing time, like I said, for the future, you have to play him as well. And that's key. I know going to the first round, that automatically is okay. This guy has to be a starter. Granted, that's not incorrect. I think that is very valid. But at the same time, I think this is a good spot to what we got at offensive tackle. And we by far not done in the draft. I think people are always looking for that flashy player, especially when it comes to as a Panther fan. A lot of people expect that. We went crazy this offseason, man. We've never went that aggressive in this offseason as far as getting guys that are solid to fit in the schemes and really be top-notch players, because that drawing is going to draw more people to come into our team. And yeah, we might have had to overplay for Jalen Phillips, but at the end of the day, we had to do what we had to do. And, added upon linebacker as well. So to me, this was not a bad pick. I like it. I was in between on it at first, initially, if we were going to still go tackle. But to me, the receiver position with Concepcion at receiver, smoke screen. I wasn't believing it at all. I didn't think they were going to do that, especially how the board was dropping. Dan Morgan in his press conference mentioned that he felt as though, based upon how the board was going, he was their best available player, which speaks a lot because, I think in most mock drafts, people have Monroe going in the first round. Maybe not at 19, in between, somewhere a little later in the draft, or maybe mid-range. Not far from where our pick was, but they had him at that first round rate. So I believe this is going to be solid. I think we need to go get Blake Rodriguez. I keep saying Blake Rodriguez. I'm thinking Blake Martinez, former linebacker with the Packers. Sorry. It comes out of my mind every single time. But Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech needs to be the second-round pick. I believe we need to go trade up and get him because there's some teams. The later we're going to see is that in question, they may take him. I'm in fear about a Buffalo. I think they need linebacker. I think they love to get our players all the time, or people that we consider we want to get. So I think we may end up trading up for them. We may not, depending on how the board drops. If linebackers are coming off, or if they feel as though just how it's going, that they're a team that likes them just as we do, might take them, we might end up trading up a couple spots out of that 51 spot. But that was a solid pick. This right here, this next pick I'm about to talk about, I think it pretty much just solidifies everything we just seen news on currently. So the Philadelphia Eagles went at pick 20. They went my boy, Makai Lemon out of Southern Cal University, USC, the real USC. And you know, fight on. But this was solid. This was solid. This was solid. Surprising, but also solid. I think this pretty much solidified that A.J. Brown is going to be traded to the Patriots, which we already had news a la Adam Scheffler, a la Ian Rappaport, and many other analysts to speak of. They've already reported on this, which the trade is going to happen June 1st. And if you want to know why that's happening, it's because there's going to be a 45 to 46 million cap hit. So they don't want that to happen. So what's going to happen is they're going to move that trade to happen to June 1st. I'm pretty sure A.J. Brown already to move his stuff to New England already. He probably already got stuff set in motion. His agents already got things in motion. Because it's pretty much said that this trade is going to happen. And you get a pick like that, with pairing him with Devontae Smith, that's going to be solid. That's really going to be solid. I really like this pick for him. I really like the pick for the Eagles, especially going forward. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who I thought was going to get the pick that the Rams went with, I thought they were going to do Todd Simpson to get a predecessor because I don't think Real Howard's the guy. Aaron Rodgers is of old age. You're letting him play around with your quarterback position. The Steelers go offensive tackle at Arizona State, Max. I don't want to butcher his last name, but I thought they could have went. I mean, just based on how the board was going, I didn't think offensive tackle. I thought maybe receiver, maybe even if a defensive tackle, maybe Peter Woods would fit here. Even McDonald out of Ohio State, defensive tackle, could fit here. I don't know, man. I'm still in question what the Steelers are really going to be doing, especially the rest of these picks moving forward. They need to make a decision at quarterback because I would not let that whole thing linger too long and then you're left in the dust. Or you're in a situation where you're relying on a 42-year-old quarterback when you games, when you playoffs. Or just to get to the wild card and bounced out, even if you're in a new regime, you're not under Mike Tomlin anymore. They got to really figure out what's going on with the situation moving forward. The next pick is Nakeem Mesidor, who was the other big end aside of Bain. He's a really good defensive end. I was actually surprised they went edge rusher here. I think it's a good pick to do this because they do need somebody else, either a predecessor next to Khalil Mack or somebody in general to be next to Khalil Mack. Especially after moving off Bosa and letting him go to Buffalo. So you needed another guy on the other side of the defensive edge rusher position. He's a solid edge rusher. And I think, honestly, it's going to be a difference maker for them because, like I said, it's important to have two defensive ends that can make a difference instead of just one. So it's a solid pick. I think he's another pick that is amongst the Harbaugh brothers in particular with Jim. So I think this is a good, solid pick for them. I know typically they always choose offensive line or guard at this position. They went solid. The next pick, Dallas Cowboys go 23 with Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. I had started to know some reports on him. I watched a little bit of tape on him a little bit just to kind of get an idea of him because I didn't watch a lot of UCF games this year. But I think this is a solid pick for him. They replaced Lawrence with another Lawrence, so to speak. So I knew edge rusher was one of the main things that Dallas Cowboys need to fix on their defense. They have some other positions they should up, like I spoke on corner, linebacker as well. And of course, they got Caleb Downs at safety, so that was big. I expect Dallas to really deep dive and actually do some things that they needed to do. Do I have faith in Jerry Jones' son still? Maybe not. But I think these two picks they got this first round did them some service. Other than a disservice, it did them more service. So we'll see how that develops, but I do like that pick as well for Dallas. And like I said, that should up a position that they definitely need. Would I be surprised if they go get another edge rusher maybe in the later rounds? Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised they do it. Here is where we beat the allegations of the Panther fan. Casey Concepcion went to the Cleveland Browns. They got a position that they needed to shore up. I don't think he's going to be a bad receiver. I just don't. There's some questions about his drops. I think he can be still a good receiver in the league for sure. Like I said, this is a position they needed. They needed receiver badly. All they have is you have Jerry Jeudy, excuse me. And then you also have a situation where you got the young tight end, number 44, but you let David Njoku move freely, which he still has not been signed yet, by the way. No team has signed him yet. I'm curious where he's going to go. But this was a solid pick they needed to get. This is where Dylan Thielman went. He went to the Chicago Bears at pick number 25. I think this was a pick that they solidified his position he needed, especially after letting Jackson become a free agent. I think this was solid for them. He's the type of guy that you can move around at the safe position. Initially, he did 2 years at Purdue, and the way Purdue utilized him was really excellent as well, including how Oregon utilized him. He's going to be a solid guy. But I like to add, I feel like the Bears had something going with their secondary pretty excellent. And you don't give up the guy that gave the formula to these guys. That is Al Harris, who was a solid corner for Green Bay Packers for years. If you don't remember, all my early 2000 people tap in. If you watching football them days, me as a kid, that was my football growing up. So I always remember Al Harris, number 31. Brother used to have the dreads hanging down, had the green sleeves, you know what I'm saying, the playoffs or whatever. But they had some of the highest turnovers this season, and all because of his teachings. And so not bringing him back as defensive back coach, I think is a big loss. I think at some point he can become a defensive coordinator coach. I like to see it develop, but you gotta keep your guys that build the formula, man. You can't lose the recipe. You can't. The next pick was the Houston Texans. They went with Kalen Rutledge out of Georgia Tech, offensive guard. I know I was watching some pods, and they were saying that a couple teams had him mocked in the first round. I hadn't really watched a lot of Georgia Tech games, in my honest opinion, I didn't. And I watched a few games. I think this is a good pick for them, meaning they needed to cheer up the offensive line. That man, C.J. Stroud, was fighting for his life. He did not look the same this year, and you need to be able to have some guys to protect him. Getting a guard is a solid pick to be able to shoot up that offensive line. So I can't complain at that pick at all. I think that's good compensation for them. Solid at that pick at 26. The next pick, which was a little bit surprising for him to go in the first round, is cornerback Chris Johnson out of San Diego State with the 27th pick overall to Miami Dolphins. I did not see him being a first-round pick. I did not think he was a bad corner. I think he's a good corner. I just did not see him on first round. But this is a position they need to shore up, especially after Xavier Howard retired after 9 to 10 plus seasons. They needed another outside solid corner to kind of fix some things, shore up some things on their defense. I do wonder, is Miami going in the second round to get a receiver? I do think that's going to end up transpiring for them. But as we move on to the next pick, we have New England Patriots selected the 28th position. They get Caleb Lumu out of Utah. As I said, there was a lot of flow offensive tackles come off the board. He was mocked higher than a lot of people drafts. I mean, early on. I watched a bit of his game. I thought he was a solid offensive tackle come out of Utah. I think, like I said, what happened in the Super Bowl, I think, made them question, like, okay, we do have a guy that can work on his technique, but we need depth. And so we also, just in case, he could be a filler if we don't believe in the guy that we have. So that was needed. I'm glad I picked. At the 29th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Peter Woods out of University of Clemson. Man, you know they already have Chris Jones, but adding Peter Woods, and Chris Jones close to part out of his prime, so he's getting to the point where he's up in age as far as football years, and I think this is a solid pickup. I think this fits for them. He's going to fit solid in that scheme. On the Spags, well, that man know how to dial up a defense, man, and I think he's going to know how to put him in the right position to make him stand out. And of course, he just has to put in the work. But I believe Peter Woods is gonna be solid, man. That's gonna be a solid pick right there. Now, earlier in the video, I talked about the Jets with Sadiq. At the 30th pick, the New York Jets get Omar Cooper Jr., University of Indiana. We all know he had that electrifying play, that one. I don't know how the heck he got his foot in against Penn State, and that was excellent. I think that pretty much boosted him and Mendoza into the draft and into the NFL as well. But they went with Omar Cooper Jr., which a lot of people were talking about as one of those dynamic receivers, which is a very electrifying guy. Great at yards after the catch as well. Very versatile guy that you can put at X or slot. Excuse me. And honestly, I think it's a good pick, but I do have questions because Frank Reich, who was with us, has that 1759 playbook. I gotta put dust off that mug. Like, I don't know. And in the quarterback position, you got Uncle Rico and Geno Smith. I don't know, man. I think they're really preparing for the future next year. Like, they're going to get that quarterback that they want next year. But overall, I like him as a guy that can go with Garrett Wilson. But I just don't know, like, the quarterback situation. And then as far as the offensive coordinator, that's to be seen into this coming season, 2026. But, yeah, other than that, I think it was solid. The next pick, Kendrick Falk. At first, I thought he might have dropped it. He was going to drop it the first round for a second, but he goes to the Tennessee Titans at pick number 31, edge rusher out of Auburn. I think he's going to be a decent defensive end. I do have some questions around his game a little bit, but I don't think he's terrible. I think he's going to be good for them to fit what they need. Mike Vrabel will bring the best out of him. Robert Saleh. I don't know. I ain't gonna talk about it, but we know the whole situation that's happening. You know what I'm saying? It was happening way back in Tennessee, but we ain't gonna talk about it right now. But Robert Saleh will know how to bring the best out of him, putting him in the situation he needs to be on at the defensive line. And he can actually move around a lot of positions too on the defensive line. The last pick of the draft of the first round is Jadarian Price of Notre Dame, who was part of that tandem with Jeremiah Price. The last time two running backs went into the first round in the same college was with Jerome Bettis out of Notre Dame, and the other running back they also drafted as well. I can't remember his name off the top of the dome, but that's the last time that a team has, or college team has had two first-round running backs going into the first round, in particular the same round. I think this is a solid pickup. We all know as far as Kenneth Walker signing with the Kansas City Chiefs, they wanted to add another running back along with Charbonnet, who actually come off an injury. So I think this is solid. Did I think he was going to go in the first? No, I thought maybe second for him. I wasn't even sure if another running back was going to come off the board in the first round outside of a Jeremiah Love. But his fellow teammate, his fellow tandem, went to Seattle Seahawks in the first round. So, man, I think this was an exciting first round. I'm curious to see what tomorrow night brings in the second round. What I want to lastly talk about as far as like the best available players that's left in the NFL coming into the second round draft. One guy in particular, Jermod McCoy. I think he is a potential player because he has shown he can, when he's healthy, he's a really good corner. I believe if it wasn't for the situation that he's having with his knee, there's some questions that he may have to have another resurgery because the ACL itself might be in a situation where it may re-tear. So he may need surgery. It's a lot of, questions around it right now. And there's a reason why he dropped out of the first round. I'm curious to see who picks up him, who chooses to do that. Emmanuel Warren, Toledo safety, heavily talked about. Curious to see where he goes. Surprised he didn't get picked up in the first round, but he has a lot of opportunity out of Toledo to be the second round. My personally best corner in this draft is Avion Terrell out of Clemson. He's looking at a second round. I think it'd be a good pickup for anybody. I wouldn't be surprised Buffalo might take him if they don't go linebacker. Another player is Denzel Boston out of Washington, receiver. You have Caden McDonald, Ohio State defensive tackle. Zion Young out of Missouri. I cannot forget about Jacob Rodriguez. Of course, man, I really want him, man. Go to Carolina Panthers, man. Man, listen, that would be solid for us. Solid. That'd be like the next Luke Kuechly, in my opinion. If you mirror them two, he looks very much like Luke Kuechly, the way he plays, the way he, diagnose plays. He's also has the ability to make turnovers. He has 9 overall forced fumbles. 7 of those came out to this year, his last year in college. Listen, man, I think he'd be a solid pickup. I know he has a tough time getting off blocks, but that's something that you can fix, in my humble opinion. But I think he would be a solid fit for us if we choose to get him. Another guy that I've been talking about, of course, we got Anthony Hill Jr. at linebacker and C.J. Allen. But let's not forget about Brandon Six. He's a guy that is very versatile out of South Carolina. He made some big plays for them. You can move him around a lot of places because he played in the slot. He played nickel. Like I said, he's played outside. He's played safety. He's played that robber position where he comes down, makes tackles, makes plays, gets turnovers, tips, and overthrows. I think whoever gets him is like going to be like Amari. Man, I don't want to butcher bro names. Sorry about these names, but Seattle Seahawks safety out of South Carolina, Amy Rowan. I think he could be the same way because the way South Carolina plays their DBs, and over a while, I think he can be another one of those greats, like a Stephon Gilmore, like a DJ Swearinger, some guys like that, just to name a few. Joseph that played with the Texans, he was an excellent corner years back. He came out of South Carolina. So you're gonna be breeding some guys in the secondary that actually good, bro. People don't really check into a lot of times. I think he could really be excellent. I want to know where he goes. You got Zachariah Branch, receiver, who's like a gadget guy out of Georgia, who was a former UC Trojan as well. Jeremy Bernard is going to be interesting because he was arguably the best receiver this past season, even over Ryan Williams, because Ryan Williams struggled this year with Alabama. He had a setback in sophomore slump. And arguably, Jeremiah Bernard was the best receiver out of Alabama this past year, making plays, yards after the catch, breaking tackles, getting the down distance for the Alabama Crimson Tide. There's some good pickers. You got T.J. Parker, is still on the board. I mean, even when you look at receiver, there's some other guys. Like I said, Denzel Boston. I want to see how this plays out going into this second round, because the next team that has the pick on the board is the San Francisco 49ers. I'm questioning what they do with that pick. Are they going to go receiver? Because, it's a whole situation. If they're going to trade their receiver that they currently have now, are they going to trade him currently? I don't know, man. It's like I said, the thing about these mock drafts, sometimes we try to predict what's going on just based on the news that we're hearing from the team insiders and such. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what they do here. Could they go linebacker just to tighten it up, some depth pieces? As far as other than Warren, like I said, they could. I don't know. Just to name a few picks other than the 49ers to begin the second round tomorrow night, you have the Cardinals at pick 34, the Bills at pick 35, the Raiders at pick 36, Giants at pick 37, Texans at pick 38, Browns at pick 39, Chiefs at pick 40, Bengals at pick 41, Saints at pick 42, so much and so forth that you see here. And of course, my Panthers at pick 51 going forward. Man, I think this is going to be even more exciting because I think more trades are going to happen in this pick. Whether it's teams trading back for more picks or trading up to get the guy that they really want so they can solidify it. Definitely, man. Definitely let me know what you guys think about this first round. I'm going to try to definitely record another video also about the second round and moving forward. Definitely let me know in the comments what y'all guys think about certain picks or who you guys think that may happen to transpire in the later rounds of the picks. If you haven't already, go definitely like and subscribe. Like I said, we're definitely trying to get this channel to 100 subscribers. Man, this is exciting, man. I know all those football lovers, man. We've been waiting on the NFL draft. You know, it come a little quicker, well, slightly, but you know, it's always a little bit of wait. But I think that's for entertainment purposes. But anyways, man, it's been a good first round so far. Second round, we're really gonna shake up some things tomorrow night. But other than that, man, if you love sports like I do, tap into Denzel Sports Takes. It's your boy Denzel. I'm out.